Hello and welcome to Late Edition, and I'm Sakal Bhatt. Well, there seems to be no let-up in the heat wave condition across the country as of now. Titlagarh in Odisha is experiencing temperature as high as 48.5 degrees Celsius, the highest till now. And elsewhere in the country, down in Telangana, in Jharkhand and also parts of West Bengal, coastal Andhra Pradesh, Rayalaseema, south of Karnataka as well as interior Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, the mercury levels are crossing 43 degrees Celsius on a daily basis. And in the plains in north and central India, states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, normal life has been hit by sweltering heat, not to forget Delhi. The mercury, in fact, is regularly touching 40 degrees in many places in south as well. The Met Department has predicted no respite for the next 3 to 4 days. But what happens after that? On Late Edition tonight, we will talk about the unprecedented heat wave conditions that have gripped several parts of the country, the reasons attributed to this acute climatic upheaval, also its fallout, how to mitigate its impact, the precautionary measures that can be taken to combat heat wave conditions, and also we'll look at various water management measures to combat such situation. And to do so, on Late Edition tonight, we have Dr. Lakshman Singh Rathore, DG Indian Meteorological Department. So welcome to the show. We have Professor A.K. Gosai from IIT Delhi. Thank you, Professor, for joining us. And also we have Dr. Subhash Giri, Professor, Department of Medicine, GTB Hospital. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us on the show. Dr. Rathore, let me begin with you. 2-3 days we still have to confront this acute heat wave condition, but can we expect some respite after that? What's the advisory? Is it going to be some relief for the people, especially in down south? And also the reasons attributed to this sudden dramatic rise in mercury. You have mercury rising in certain parts of the country, while places like Assam are reeling under floods.
I don't see any respite from this heat wave from large parts of the country. And currently, if we see that there is a north-south corridor starting from Bihar along the east coast and interior parts of peninsula, where the temperatures are in the heat wave category. Looking at the short, medium and extended range predictions, we are really not able to find the respite in the temperature conditions. As we can see the model outputs, there is a clear-cut projections which are indicative of the fact that temperature are going to remain above normal, and though there will be shift in the spatial domains, there may be
which could be the worst hit areas?
Currently it is Odisha, Telangana, Rayalaseema and parts of interior Tamil Nadu, but subsequently next week you will find that even the west coast is going to get in the grip of the rise in temperatures, and interior Karnataka and parts of Maharashtra up to
So
Gujarat.
we have more bad and tough days ahead, and one has to brace for that.
Yes, and as far as North India is concerned, which is frequently visited by these western disturbances, and currently there is a western disturbance, and another western disturbance is likely to impact on 1st of May. And when the western disturbance approaches us, there is a rise in temperature, and when it passes, we get the northerly winds, and therefore there is a fall in that temperature, and that fall is the magnitude maybe 3-4 degrees. So therefore you get intermittent relief in that. But fortunately, as of now, the West India is not that badly impacted in terms of the temperatures with reference to their normal.
All right. Professor Gosai, now this acute water stress, it seems that it's been worst till now. In terms of water management, how can one really go about it?
Let me first mention that this water stress is not because of the heat wave, because this is over abstraction of the water resources from the groundwater, which was your backup, which you have exploited. So the drinking water problem which you are finding in the Maharashtra cannot be connected. Yes, the water consumption will go up as the temperature goes up. Water consumption domestic as well as the water consumption for the biomass, they'll go up because the evapotranspiration demand will go up. But you cannot link that to the condition which is prevailing in Maharashtra directly with the immediate heat wave which is being seen in the various parts of the country.
But the scarcity of water, even if we're dealing, but if we look at only the scarcity of water, you have people reeling under acute heat wave condition. There is acute shortage of water. in that sense of term, what should be the approach? What all are the options that the state as stakeholders can look at and implement on ground level?
That's what we now normally when we see there are two possible storages. One is the above ground storage, the other is below ground storage. So the above ground storage will lose more water as the temperature goes up because of the direct evaporation, whereas the below ground storage is more safe. So that is not going to be impacted immediately because of the higher temperatures which you normally see at the top of the surface. So that is the relationship. So in that sense, is much safer to have the storages which are underground. These storages might vanish if the temperatures go up. Every day you might find that the surface storage which you have in the form of ponds, in the form of lakes, in the form of even reservoirs, the evaporation component will go up. So you might lose more water on account of...
So there's a problem of recharging these water bodies also, and when you talk about the recharging these water bodies, polluted water bodies and managing that is an issue there.
Recharging takes place from two different ways. One is from the water bodies which you might have created which are filled up during the monsoon period. The other recharge which takes place from the normal ground surface, that happens when the rain comes. So this is not the period for that kind of recharge. That we'll have to wait for the gods to give the good rainfall this season as has been predicted by IMD. And if the rainfall is above normal, you will have more recharge going into the ground and becoming part of the groundwater.
Doctor, now first of all the symptoms to understand heat wave from a aam aadmi point of view, we're talking about those daily basis who go out, who commute in auto rickshaws, perhaps walking. Now this is something which is getting very, very difficult with every passing day. If you could just first talk about the symptoms and at the very basic level how to go about it, precautionary measures and to combat heat wave.
Yeah, we usually label the heat wave when the temperature suddenly rises. Usually if it is more than 5 degrees centigrade rise from the expected temperature, we say that now it is the time when somebody can have the exposure to the heat wave. We usually say that a person who is getting exposed to the extreme temperature for a longer period, at that moment he may go into the heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion we label when somebody is having a mild degree of fever, he is feeling thirsty and his water content of the body is getting reduced, he is sweating profusely. Although mentally he is normal, his temperature is always lesser than 105. This is a condition where one can manage at home. Basically he has to be given a lot of water, he should be shifted to the cold place, he should be put up somewhere when there is a fan or there is a AC, or one can go ahead with the wet water tapping, especially cold water tapping. So in that situation it can be managed at home. Heat exhaustion is quite common. Some of the people who are working like on the roadside or who are exposed more like drivers, working in the factory, laborers, athletes, and especially the stone crushing industries and excavating the stones and mines.
In fact, these are the casualties.
Yeah,
yes.
These are the people who are more exposed to it. We label when somebody who is having the heat exhaustion has gone shifted to the heat stroke. That is the emergency. That is the situation one should know. And everybody in our surrounding, because in North India or even in the most of the India we have the heat wave now it is going on. There basically we have to make it out when the temperature is going more than 105 degree Fahrenheit. It can be measured very well by a simple thermometer only. Digital thermometer is also available where even a layman can read the digits. And if the temperature is more than 105 and he is hot, he is not sweating, or he was already profusely sweating but now he is not able to sweat. His axilla, his groins are dry. Actually we found the patient who has a temperature, whose temperature is high, his axilla and groin should be wet. But in this situation their groin and axilla will also be dry because basically he has lost lot of water and now his body is
so what are the quick first 5 steps that should be taken to restore the patient?
I'm coming to that. They say the person will have first the temperature will be high, it will be more than 105. He'll be feeling thirsty, he'll be dry, his tongue will be dry, he may be having vomiting, he may become altered, his behavior may get slightly changed, or he may fall down, he may become unconscious. These are the symptoms when we'll say that a patient has acquired the heat stroke. He should be taken to the emergency. And it is the situation where he should be immediately shifted to the cool area where the temperature should be quite low. Even people advise that they should be given a cold water bath, or even you can spray the water on them prior to taking them to the hospital, and or either you do the cold water tapping, or even sometimes in the groin or the axilla area one can keep the ice also. Overall, dipping the person into the ice mug we usually don't advise, because that will cause a lot of vasoconstriction and some of the problem. And when he is being shifted to the hospital, there also we usually go ahead with the IV administration of the fluids, cold water, even allow the cold water intake if he is conscious.
But the immediate solution would be tapping water.
Initially, he should be dip into the water straightway, or he should take up a bath, or he should be showered with water. And if water is cold available, then it is best. Hot water should not be used.
What
He
about
should not
AC
be given any
rooms?
hot.
What about cold freezing AC rooms? Is it advisable to take the patient to?
Yeah, surely, definitely. If the temperature is somewhere 15 to 25 degree, one can be kept in that room for a certain period, and when the temperature comes out to be normal, he will be given to the oral fluids also in addition.
So now the reasons as far as the sudden dramatic patterns that we have seen, like I mentioned in the first question, you have floods in Assam, and then you've got Telangana and other parts who are really reeling under acute heat wave conditions. This is something we do get to see every season, but not to this greater extreme extent. What has really happened on climatic front?
Actually, India is a big country, and when you see the circulation pattern, the synoptic situations, they are having different impact on different parts of the country. And the major cause of the heat wave over the larger parts of the country is because there is a mid-tropospheric anticyclone circulation in the air. And when I say mid-tropospheric, that means about 5 to 7 kilometers from the surface.
Okay.
And if there is an anticyclone and that height of the atmosphere, there is a subsidence motion, and the air is sinking, and therefore that acts as a cap. It doesn't allow convection to take place, and it also traps the heat beneath this boundary. And therefore the constant rise in temperature takes place. And fortunately or unfortunately, associated with that in the peripheral region, particularly in the situation you explained that northeast is getting rainfall, and that is because the winds are dead southerly over the northeastern region, taking a lot of moisture from the Bay of Bengal, and that rain is also likely to continue as long as this heat wave is likely to persist.
Okay, well at this point we're going to take a very short break. When we'll come back, we'll talk about the other impact of heat wave that is predominantly seen as far as the agriculture is concerned, the produce is concerned, the farming community is concerned. We are going to talk about that in terms of irrigation methods that one can really look at, but after this short break. You're watching Late Edition, don't go away.
बच्चों आज हम ऑड इवन के बारे में पढ़ेंगे। ऑड इवन का मतलब
मैम 15 अप्रैल नहीं मैम 15 अप्रैल से 30 अप्रैल तक। ऑड का मतलब ऑड डे पर और नंबर की गाड़ी, और इवन डेट पर इवन नंबर की गाड़ी।
बच्चों को भी पता है, क्या आपको पता है?
दिल्ली में 15 से 30 अप्रैल तक लागू है ऑड इवन, ताकि प्रदूषण और ट्रैफिक जैम से मिले दिल्ली को राहत।
आप सबने दुनिया भर में क्या मिसाल बनाई है, जिस सफाई से आपने कचरा वहीं फेंक दिया। और मन्नू आंटी क्या कूड़ा फेंकती हैं, ओलंपिक्स के गोला फेंकने वाले भी शर्मा जाएं। और ये देखिए, लक्ष्मी भाभी की सफाई तो गांव-गांव में प्रसिद्ध है। हमारे सुखिया भैया मन की करते, जहां सोचा वहीं शौच कर दिया। ये देश जो आप ही का घर है, उसे क्यों गंदा करते हैं? थोड़ी शर्म कर लो, सोच स्वच्छ कर लो।
अगर एक बार 125 करोड़ देशवासी तय कर लें कि मैं गंदगी नहीं करूंगा, तो दुनिया की कोई ताकत नहीं है जो हिंदुस्तान को गंदा कर सकती है।
स्वच्छ भारत, एक कदम स्वच्छता की ओर।
सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, सुनो सुनो, ओ सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, सुनो सुनो, सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, ध्यान लगाकर बात सुनो। नीम कोटेड यूरिया आया, खेती में नई क्रांति लाया। इससे यूरिया की क्षमता और बढ़े, नाइट्रोजन जमीन को बेहतर मिले, नीम के गुणों से कीटाणु मरे, पानी को दूषित ना करे। तो भाइयों, नीम कोटेड यूरिया से हो मेहनत सफल, बेहतर हो खेत, पानी और फसल।
कृषि और किसान कल्याण मंत्रालय द्वारा किसान हित में जारी।
चौक लगा ले गाना आइटम वाला, मार 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 मसाला।
इंडिया को चाहिए एंटरटेनमेंट फुल मसाला मार के, इसलिए डिश टीवी दे सबसे ज्यादा मसाला, सबसे ज्यादा एंटरटेनमेंट। डिश टीवी लाइव मसाला मार के।
भारत में लगभग 3 करोड़ विकलांगजन हैं, किंतु हमारे सरकारी भवन, अस्पताल, विद्यालय विकलांगजनों के लिए सुगम्य नहीं है। यही हाल हमारे रेलवे स्टेशन, बस स्टॉप, बसों तथा रेलगाड़ियों का है। हमारी वेबसाइट्स यदि W3C सुगम्यता मापदंडों को पूरा नहीं करती, तो वे दृष्टिबाधित और श्रवण बाधित व्यक्तियों के लिए पूरी तरह उपयोगी नहीं है। आइए हम बाधा रहित वातावरण का निर्माण करें। सुगम्य भारत अभियान। देश का प्रत्येक विकलांगजन अन्य सामान्य व्यक्तियों के समान स्वावलंबी होकर सम्मान और गरिमा के साथ जीवन यापन करे। सुगम्य भारत, सशक्त भारत।
मुझे मिला,
मुझे मिला,
मुझे भी मिला,
और मुझे भी।
दलबीर को मिला, करीम को मिला, मंजली को मिला और रुस्तम को भी मिला। और ऐसे हजारों जरूरतमंद अल्पसंख्यक समुदाय के लोगों को मिल रहा है NMDFC की कर्ज स्कीम के तहत लोन। अल्पसंख्यक कार्य मंत्रालय की इस योजना में छोटे कारोबारियों के लिए है टर्म लोन यानी मियादी कर्ज, जिसमें 10 लाख तक की मदद का प्रावधान है। NGO से जुड़ी अल्पसंख्यक महिलाओं के लिए है माइक्रो फाइनेंस स्कीम यानी लघु वित्त योजना, जिसमें है 50,000 तक का कर्ज। इसके अलावा माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटी के स्टूडेंट्स के लिए है एजुकेशन लोन स्कीम, जिसमें है प्रोफेशनल और टेक्निकल एजुकेशन के लिए बहुत ही कम ब्याज दरों पर लोन। तो आप भी NMDFC की कर्ज स्कीम से लाभ उठाएं, इस योजना से जुड़ें और आत्मनिर्भर बन जाएं।
अधिक जानकारी के लिए लॉग इन करें www.minorityAffairs.gov.in पर। आप हमारे हेल्पलाइन टोल फ्री नंबर 1800112001 पर भी कॉल कर सकते हैं। सबका साथ, सबका विकास।
रॉकस्टार रॉकी को है रॉक का क्रेज। शास्त्री जी के पूरे क्लासिकल है टेस्ट, रॉकी के रॉक से हैं वो बेहाल। शास्त्री जी के संगीत से मिलती नहीं रॉकी की चाल। तभी दिल्ली में आ गया ऑड इवन का दौर। शेयर की गाड़ी एंड मच मोर। ऑड इवन से हुई गाड़ी शेयर करने की शुरुआत, फिर तो हो गई दोस्ती, मिली ताल से ताल। तभी दिल्ली ने कहा दिल से, ऑड इवन फिर से 15 से 30 अप्रैल।
सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, सुनो सुनो, ओ सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, सुनो सुनो, सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, ध्यान लगाकर बात सुनो। नीम कोटेड यूरिया आया, खेती में नई क्रांति लाया। इससे यूरिया की क्षमता और बढ़े, नाइट्रोजन जमीन को बेहतर मिले, नीम के गुणों से कीटाणु मरे, पानी को दूषित ना करे। तो भाइयों, नीम कोटेड यूरिया से हो मेहनत सफल, बेहतर हो खेत, पानी और फसल।
कृषि और किसान कल्याण मंत्रालय द्वारा किसान हित में जारी।
Welcome back. You're watching Late Edition. Professor Gosai, before we slipped into debate, we talked about how heat wave and its direct impact is seen on the agriculture, since we're an agrarian economy. So the food security, the produce, you know, all this is directly impacted. In terms of coming up with irrigation methods to counter such heat wave condition, how do we go about it?
I think before I answer that question, there is something which needs to be understood, that there is a relationship between crop, the water and the soil. So the soil is a medium through which the water is kept and supplied to the plant. When the temperature changes, when the temperature increases, then this storage in the soil which is created for the crops, that is taken up quickly, and your number of irrigations have to be increased. And if it's a rain-fed agriculture, suppose the 2 rains, the next rain when it comes, if by then the moisture is already lost, then the crop will fail. So that is what, when we talk of the climate change situation, that is what is expected to happen. The number of rainy days are going to reduce, and you will find that even all that 60% of the area which we are having under the rain-fed agriculture is going to be impacted, which means that you will need to give irrigation to those areas also where you don't have irrigation facilities.
And the concept of drought-resistant crops?
Drought-resistant is only a very small portion, in the sense that you might have a crop which is taking slightly less amount of water, but that is not the only answer. And many of the drought-resistant crops, they are not able to be produced everywhere. So you have to have a selection. You have to have.
They are region-specific or geographically.
That's true.
Yes.
And they have to be suitable for that kind of conditions.
Terrain and conditions, right. Dr. Giri, in terms of preventive measures, what all are we looking at? You talked about symptoms, you talked about how should be our instant response if somebody is hit by heat wave, but what about the preventive measures for everyone?
Yeah, basically heat stroke where the mortality is very high. So here we should focus on the prevention. Even if once the heat stroke has occurred, you have taken the patient to the hospital, he has been given the best possible care, still the mortality remains very high. So the prevention becomes more important here. And the main important point is that there is a deficit of water. How should we avoid the loss of water from the body? One. Secondly, how to take the extra water to counter the loss of the water due to the heat. So the first comes, should we try to expose ourselves lesser to the environment? Can we shift our working hour in the early morning or the late evening? Can we stop going in the midday to the market or on the roadside? Can we provide the, say, proper ventilations, cooling systems in the factory, or say somewhere the like reducing the humidity in the factory area, or closed environment
basically
where a lot of people
certain conditions which
staying.
Can be altered. Not all
these
can
are the
be
conditions
altered.
where we should focus on. Secondly, if somebody is going out, he should wear cotton cloths, they should be loose cloths, and he should wear one hat which can cover his face also. If one can go ahead with the goggles, that will add to the protection. Secondly, he must have water with him. He should keep his tummy full with the water. When he is starting from the home, he should take extra water. He should drink more water, and on the way also he should keep on taking the clean water. That is the only prevention I can talk about.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Rathore, your department has now started with the concepts of issuing watch alerts, warnings, etc. All the advisories and forecasts have always been there, but in terms of developing a very concrete response mechanism to the warnings that have been issued, do you think lot needs to be done in that direction? Because you do put all that in a public domain, but then are the stakeholders actually paying heed to that? Are they taking preventive measures? In terms of responding to these warnings, if we do that, do you think that a lot of the heat wave impact or effects can be mitigated to a larger extent?
Definitely, Sakal. We really need to go miles in order to develop a mechanism to combat to these heat waves. Good that the warnings, alerts and watch are issued by Met Department on regular basis, and also the skill of these temperature forecasts in different temporal ranges have improved substantially. And therefore what we are now targeting is to sensitize the people, and we have started heat action plan in the state of Gujarat, starting from Gandhinagar in collaboration with Indian Institute of Public Health 5 years ago. And thereafter we went to Vidarbha, Nagpur, and then Bhubaneswar again in conjunction with the state governments and the Institute of Public Health.
Basically, you're reaching out to various stakeholders.
And to educate them. And coming back to the question...
So the climate is a domain which cannot be controlled or altered, but there are things which are in our domain where we can exercise a control and mitigate the impact.
Definitely. And for example, as you mentioned, and Professor Gosai rightly mentioned, agriculture is the major user of water. 80% of water is being used for agriculture. And if you look at the water use efficiency in agriculture sector, it is very poor. It is only 40 to 45%. And therefore,
30%.
30%. and so if with the same amount of water we can raise 3 crops, if we really enhance our water use efficiency, and doubling the area with the amount which is available at our disposal is doable. So we should really target on that, beside the improvements which can take place through the drought tolerant varieties and less water requiring crops, etc.
So basically the bottom line is that confronting heat wave, whether it's this season or the forthcoming seasons, there is a lot of room left in terms of being well equipped to counter that.
We are now in the arena of climate change, and the temperature rise is on card. We have already witnessed after 2001 temperatures is on the rise. 2015 was the 3rd largest warmest year, and 2016 we contemplate not cooler than 2015. And the emissions which we have led into the atmosphere are going to stay there. And so therefore temperature rising trend in the temperature is going to be there. So we have to resort to these management issues.
The response mechanism. Final word from you, sir. Yes.
I think this is much more severe situation than we are contemplating, because right now the situation is that our drinking water is being hit. So unless we preserve the water at the basin level and try to retain it for this as the first priority, the drinking water. For example, think of a situation when people are getting dehydrated and they don't even have a safe drinking water. So I think we have to do something in terms of the overall water management, which has to be done by taking a basin-wise approach, the basin level approach, to look at how much is the availability in that basin, how much we are consuming, are we creating a deficit which cannot be sustained.
Basically,
it is not sustainable.
More concerted focus as far as the water management.
Integrated water resources management. That is what is the key to the whole thing.
Is concerned. Thank you very much, Dr. Lakshman Singh Rathore, Director General, Met Department. Thank you for joining us, sir. Also, I thank Professor A.K. Gosai from IIT Delhi, and yes, Dr. Subhash Giri from GTB Hospital. Thank you very much. And with that, we need to wrap it up here, this edition of Late Edition. But you can always stay tuned to DD News to catch the latest. Meanwhile, news and updates continue on our channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Namaskar.